Thank you for tuning in to another episode of In Range. This is the May,
Sure.
May
Maybe.
2019 Q&A for In Range TV. All of our questions come from valuable Patreon supporters, and we appreciate them. So thank you for making this a reality. We have lots of them as always, so let's just get going.
All right. First question is from Gannon. Why are there so many side-feeding submachine guns in World War II as opposed to top or bottom feed?
Are there that many though?
There aren't actually that many. So if you go through the major nations, the U.S. used the Thompson and the Grease gun, both bottom feed.
Yep.
The British had the Sten, side feed.
Okay.
The Australians had the Owen, top feed. The Germans had the MP 38 and 40, bottom feed. The Italians had the Beretta 38, bottom feed.
Yep.
The Japanese had the Type 100 to the extent they had any submachine
Which
gun.
was
That's the
very,
side feed.
a very limited number.
Yeah, but it is side feed.
It is.
The French had the Moss 38, bottom feed. Who did I leave out? Anyone? Like, there actually really only is one common side feed submachine gun in World War II, and that's the Sten gun.
Yep.
Now, I think what Gannon is probably thinking about are several interwar German-designed submachine guns that are side feed.
Okay.
The MP-34O,
Yep.
the MP-35, the Irma. And I think those were out there. I think there was a theory that you wanted to be able to shoot from a nice low prone position with a submachine gun.
Which is something you really kind of don't do as much with a submachine gun as you would maybe with a rifle or something like that.
Yeah, but those interwar guns are largely designed without much combat experience to guide them.
True.
Like, you have World War I, but there's not that much actual use of submachine guns in World War I. You got some German stormtroopers right at the very end with MP-18s, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And they've got a side feed, and that seems to work well enough. Once you get into World War II, I think what people find is it's not actually that important. And top feed is perhaps an easier alternative than side if it is an issue.
Although a submachine gun could really feed from anywhere on the dial depending on how you want to design it.
Yeah,
So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, and then and of course this is not a submachine gun, but the FG-42. That's a side feed as well.
Yeah, and in the case of the FG-42, it was done very deliberately for reasons of overall length.
Yes.
We want to bring the magazine back, basically have the magazine and the trigger group in the same space in the receiver, which means you can't put the magazine on the bottom because the trigger, the pistol grip's there. They didn't want to put it on top, and that leaves you with side. But if you put it on the side, you can have the magazine here and the trigger here, occupying the same place in the receiver without interfering.
Obviously, there wasn't much more done with. I mean, there was a lot of things done with the FG-42s that designed post-war, but in terms of that being as a rifle, it's an interest. I find the side feed magazine an interesting middle ground between that and what we now consider traditional bullpup.
True.
It's kind of like a 1.5 bullpup.
Yeah.
I like the side feed better for that though, but that's a whole other conversation.
So,
Guess there weren't that many.
answer is not applicable. Brandon says, in your opinion, is the SCAR 16 or 17 a durable enough rifle for smaller nations to maintain and use as a standard service rifle for several decades? I don't know. I really have very little experience with the SCAR.
Well, I mean, I have match experience, and I've been around a lot. For a while, there was a big thing going on where everybody was getting the SCAR. There was SCAR 16s and 17s everywhere. 16s were less common than 17s. 17s you still see show up at matches today. There are issues with the SCAR 17 in that it tends to be an optics killer. In fact, it's a good platform for testing the viability and reliability and durability of optics. But I think that if you were to buy them as you would in a contract and get the typical replacement parts that are required, from what I've seen, there are no real severe or any real significant durability issues with either of the guns.
Okay.
So my of course, until these are fired for years and years and years with thousands of rounds, one cannot make the statement. But from my experience over years of seeing competition shooting, including 16s and 17s, I have not seen any real issues with any of them.
Okay.
Besides what I mentioned, optics breakage on the 17. And there's some ergonomics issues, but that's not a durability issue.
All right. Jamie asks, opinions on running a suppressed rifle during a two-gun match.
What are your thoughts?
It kind of defeats the purpose. Like, unless everybody's running a suppressed rifle. To me, the biggest benefit of the suppressed rifle is I don't have to do as much with ear protection. But if I'm the only one, or even if there's only one person running an unsuppressed rifle, I have to wear ears anyway. Now I know you do get a benefit from muzzle blast.
Kind of, depending on the suppressor and what you're doing.
Certainly better than a break.
Yeah, oh, definitely, than a break.
And for things like shooting through conduits, enclosed areas,
Yeah.
it makes it a more pleasant gun.
But does
Overall, I think it does. Yeah. We've had some times like shooting in like house structures.
Yeah.
Where, especially in hallways, even if you don't need a brake, just a regular, standard, normal, flash hider muzzle,
It's pretty loud.
that can be rather concussive and jarring, and with a suppressor, it's not.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting. So this is a thing I think that comes up a lot. I think a lot of people think suppressors as some sort of you're mentioning some of the benefits of handling, but I think the actual effect of a suppressor on a gun, especially in a practical environment where there aren't tactical applications, is more deficiency than benefit.
Okay.
You've got weight hanging off the front of the gun.
That's
You have something that is now extremely hot even after a short duration or course of fire, where if you touch it on anything, it will melt and or burn.
Yeah.
The balance of the gun's different. You typically, unless it's a very high-end suppressor or you're lucky, you have a point of impact shift when you install it or take it off, so you have to zero with it on. There's a lot of things that go on there. So and as you said, the sound reduction or the noise reduction is pleasant to be around. However, you still need ears.
True.
You don't shoot these rifles without, unless you're shooting subsonics, you're not shooting these rifles without hearing protection.
Right.
So you don't have the benefit of not having hearing protection.
Right.
So I honestly think that suppressors are frequently seen as this, wow, really cool thing, but the real value of a suppressor is a tactical application in the field or for hunting, where maybe you can fire a shot, not 50 of them.
Right.
Or when you're firing at an enemy, they don't know or can't determine, thank you, dog, you can't determine the source of the fire,
Right.
which is the tactical application.
So I would go back on it and say, if you have a rifle that you keep with a suppressor on it, for other use with a suppressor on it, and you want to go shoot a two-gun match with that rifle, leave the suppressor on it.
Yes.
And get practice handling the rifle with the deficiency, without having to re-zero it.
Yes.
And getting to know the extra weight hanging off the barrel.
Another issue is actually getting through barricades.
Yeah.
Actually being able to, I know you shouldn't poke your gun through things, but the reality is, like when you're shooting a VTAC, being able to stick your flash hider through that hole to get your shots is a big deal.
Yeah.
Or depending on, like, if you're underneath some weird thing, majig or whatever, and suppressors add diameter. So I honestly think they're more of a deficiency than they are a benefit.
All right. Phil says, are drop-in uppers like the BRN 180 the future of the AR in terms of upgrades, conversion to piston, etc.?
I think the future of the AR-15 is the AR-15 as it is.
Yeah. I think they'll continue to be a sideshow.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but the AR does not need any of, the stuff it really needs it already has.
I agree.
Its modularity, namely the upper-lower distinction, makes it easy for people to adopt different versions of it, change things, play with crazy new ideas, like taking your standard lower and making it into a bullpup.
Yeah, that's one, for example. And I think what we're doing with the What Was Done to Do project, which we are revisiting, I think that, to my opinion, the future of the AR-15 platform is more how can we make it in its current guise better, rather than convert it to a piston or something like that. So like lightweight materials, better optics, better triggers, better barrels, those things are the future of the AR-15. I think drop-in uppers like the BRN 180, which by the way, I like very much.
Yes, you do.
It's really cool, but is it the future of the platform? No.
No.
On again.
All right, Leonard asks, why don't we see more carbon fiber in current firearms?
I think it's hard to manufacture into the shape you want it to be.
I think in addition to that, there aren't a whole lot of places where the strengths of carbon fiber are really all that applicable.
It's also expensive.
Yeah. So, we see it in free float tubes.
Yeah.
Where, the whole point of a free float tube is you attach it at the back and not anywhere else. And you want it to be as light as possible because it's not really doing anything.
No, and it's a
reason to
relatively
have
simple
mass.
part to manufacture,
Yeah.
too, in terms of its shape and what you need it to be.
Yeah. But if you look at other things, like could you make a polymer pistol frame out of carbon fiber? Maybe, but that's going to be really expensive. The big thing that polymer brings to the table is you can very easily mold it into a very inexpensive frame.
Yeah. Once you have your mold,
Right.
you're not molding carbon fiber. You'd have to take a block of carbon fiber and essentially mill it into what you want it to be,
Yeah.
which is a lot of waste and a lot of expense.
Yeah. And what do you gain over polymer? Is maybe a little bit of cost reduction or weight reduction? But
Yeah.
not that much.
I think it has targeted applications.
Yeah. But I don't think many of them really specifically apply to firearms.
That said,
you see it in cars. We'll make body panels out of carbon fiber
That's different.
because you've got this big flat shape that has to retain its strength.
They're also relatively simple in terms of what has to be done to make them be that.
And carbon fiber fits those goals.
Now, it's excellent. I still stand behind that as the free flow tube is phenomenal.
Yeah, they're great for free flow tubes.
Yeah, but I think they have targeted applications. It's something that it's good in its place, but you don't want it to be there for everything, or it can't be.
All right. London says, putting aside advantages of economy of scale and looking at just the rifles themselves, is there any other platform that can stand toe-to-toe with the AR on most points, if not exceed it on some?
No.
I think this is a misunderstanding of the application of economy of scale. The AR has benefited from the economy of scale because it's been around long enough that enough people have put in the time and effort to improve it incrementally. That is why it's so good today.
Go ahead. This question would have been more relevant in 1969.
Yes. Yeah.
At that point, that was a different game.
Yeah. The problem is, no matter how much of a boutique, fancy, expensive rifle you want to compare it to, that boutique rifle, while it maybe they put a ton of work into it, you can only really work the bugs out of a gun by building 100,000 of them and having them in service for 10 years.
Yep. And, like, for example, go to Google right now and type in AR-15 Bolt to go shopping.
Well,
How many people make those? That's the point, right? At this point, they are so mass-produced by so many different places and so many people and so many companies that the economy of scale on the AR-15 now is like, I can't think of anything that's comparable in firearms.
the AK.
Oh, no. Not in the
I mean,
U.S.
the AK is that, well, he's not talking about cost. He's talking about the quality of the gun.
All right, fair enough, fair enough.
And I think the only thing...
The AK, yes.
The AK is there because it's got that timetable that
I agree.
it's proven. Is the SCAR 16? We don't know. Like,
No, but the AK is a good point.
check in on the SCAR 16 in 10 years.
Because we know someone that has an AK that literally has every part in it is from a different country.
Yeah.
Literally, every part. Like, he purposely took a part from every country to make a gun that was an AK. And that goes to show you that they've done a good job of making sure that everyone's conforming to the actual specifications of designing the gun, that those parts are so interchangeable. But you're right, the economy of scale on both exists.
And the AK has gone through enough design iteration.
It has.
Like a modernized AK-74 with, the Russians are now making those things with railed top covers. It doesn't really lack behind the AR in very many places.
in some, but
Some, but not a lot. Like,
no.
if someone hands you a current, proper, modernized Russian military AK, and they hand you an AR, you're not really at a detriment with the AK.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's some of the older videos on Internet where I actually put them again. Like, I took them both to a class, and I went through the entire, did the same drills, and it was about a 10% hit with the AK. That's in a time drill on a square range. In a combat environment, it's negligible.
Right, and the match environment and the training environment don't address the other fundamental benefit of long-term development, which is every gun's just going to work reliably.
Absolutely.
You're not going to have parts breakage. Parts breakage is measured not on how many parts break in one gun in 1,000 rounds. They're how many parts are going to break when you have 10,000 guns and you put 10,000 rounds through every gun.
I agree, 100%.
Shervin says, what do you think of an FG42 in an intermediate cartridge, either 7.62x39 or 5.56? Can it be done, and would there be a market for it, assuming semi-auto only?
Well, it could be done, but there's no market for it.
Bingo.
Yeah.
The Germans did experimentally make like one in 8 Kurz.
I didn't even know that.
The Swiss.
I know they made G43s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Swiss experimented with a gun derived from the FG in what was 7.5x38. It's basically 7.5 Kurz.
Okay.
Their own little
Sure.
post World War II developmental experimental cartridge. Honestly, the thing is, what the FG42 does very well is handle the recoil impulse of a full power cartridge in a light and compact package.
Light in comparison to what it's firing.
Yeah.
Still relatively.
Well, yeah, relative to other guns in its
Yes.
its realm.
Agreed.
Changing that to a 5.56 or a 7.62x39, you've kind of gotten rid of the whole point. You don't need something like an FG42 anymore. You can go get an AR-15 that's going to do the same thing for 6 pounds.
Well, this would recoil even less, right? I mean, arguably, the weight alone would do that.
Maybe.
But I mean, the FG42 was a very specifically targeted design gun for a very specific purpose.
Yeah.
And they did a very good job of achieving those goals.
They cut a lot of... They didn't cut corners, but they cut things tight. Like the safety margins on the FG42 design, the lifespan of an FG42 is not very great. Like if someone released a new rifle today, and they're like, this is awesome. It has very little recoil, and it's lightweight, and it's short, and it will last 3,500 rounds. Now, how many people out there are going to put 3,500 rounds through it? Not the majority of buyers.
We're also talking fully automatic, right? Like when Rick's reproductions will go longer than that.
Rick's reproductions have more R&D time in them than the originals.
Yeah, he does, and he's put effort into that to actually improve the gun.
The thing is, Rick's guns are milled receivers.
They are.
The most common FG42 is a stamped receiver.
Good point. So I just want people to realize that I didn't want to.
Sure.
I didn't want people going away from this thinking the reproductions have that same issue.
No, they do not.
Yeah. Okay.
But like, if you came out with a gun designed the same way the Germans originally did the FG42, everyone would look at it and they go, 3,500 rounds and then it breaks. I'm never going to buy that, regardless of whether that actually is something they're going to do.
That was actually more than sufficient for the lifespan of the time the gun would have been used in combat at the time, though.
That is true, yeah. Steven says, if you were on a limited budget, already consistently doing dry fire and manipulation practice, and you wanted to improve your shooting the most, would you spend your money on matches, range practice, or classes?
It's a hard one. I think you need to do it in a specific order. I would say you'd want to start with classes, then go to range practice for safety protocol, and then go to matches, if you could do it in an order. So I would say all three. And he seems to indicate you only want to do one of them. So I would say if you have a limited budget, your limited budget should focus in that order. I would focus on a class or classes to get the protocols down, range practice to make sure you've got those skills that you own them, and then go to a match. That's my thought.
It's probably a better answer than I was going to give.
What were you going to say?
Matches.
Okay.
Because I think matches give you the most potential growth.
I don't disagree with that. The problem is if you come to a match ill-prepared, it could be a bad thing.
Right. They assume a certain basis of knowledge to begin with. And if you've got that, then I think matches are the best bang for the buck. Because they're not the cheapest, but they're a lot cheaper than classes, typically speaking. And you're going to practice a much wider range of skills than you typically will with your own self-run range practice.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but it takes a lot of this is why people hire personal trainers.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to say you can't do a great, plan a great workout at home and do it religiously and, and work great. Just the problem is the dedication and the discipline required to do it generally don't happen.
It's tough.
Unless you have external motivation. Well, matches are that sort of external motivation. Not just you're on a time clock in a way that you're very hard to replicate on your independent practice, but also you're going to be presented with shooting scenarios that you wouldn't normally set up for yourself, either because you don't like them and unconsciously avoid them, or because you just hadn't thought of them. This is assuming, of course, you can find a match that fits the sort of practice that you want to get.
That's true. And the thing, I think I'm also tainting this question with my own mindset, because what I mean by that is when I look at this, the question specifically says improve your shooting. And when I think of classes, I actually think of like tactical classes, like maybe not shooting classes. So when I saw classes, I immediately took this question as combatives, which is not necessarily the same. It absolutely isn't actually the same thing as shooting.
Right.
So if your goal is to improve your shooting, as long as you've got the safety protocols down, then I would agree with you that your answer of matches is correct.
Okay.
Because if shooting's the goal, the thing is, we hear this in the channel a lot, and we've never espoused anything other than this. But you go, that's not a place to learn tactics, and I'm like, we didn't say it was. Like where did you hear us say this? Like, it's a place to to improve your skills in an incredible way on the clock under duress, different kind of duress than combat, but duress, getting essentially stress inoculation, and doing it on the clock and testing yourself against yourself, and then having a measurable result. That will improve your shooting. It 100% will. We've seen it with you in range over years. Like, you've become
way better than I was 4 years ago.
You're competitive.
Yeah.
Like, truly competitive. And that has been pretty much matches alone.
It has been virtually entirely matches.
So that kind of answers that. So if your goal is shooting, then that's it. I agree with that.
All right. Let's see. Santaroga says, U.S. military-style irons or sub-$100 red dot optics?
We had this question before, and I'm going to hit it again. The sub-$100 optic.
Yeah, I trust them too.
Yep.
It's interesting to look at the perspective we have in the United States of, like, top-of-the-line, high-end gear. You put a Burris scope on your gun, you're probably just going to die.
Yeah.
Like, immediately. You'll probably die on the way to the range because you put a Burris on your gun.
The minute you screw it on the rail, you're like,
it's got to be.
You fall over dead, yeah.
Like, Loophole, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Swarovski, Schmittenbender, that's like really the minimum.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
or it's got to be an aim point or nothing else. Like, don't get me wrong, aim point's great. It's a great product, but
But what's interesting to me is when we break outside of that U.S. perspective.
Yes.
I've talked to people in other militaries who are like, I'm allowed to buy my own optic to mount on my rifle that, by the way, is issued with iron sights. And I have limited money because of my own personal money, and like I'm not in the U.S. I don't have nearly as many options for what I can buy.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Is this $50 Chinese red dot worthwhile? And a lot of them come to the conclusion that, yeah, it is. And you'll see people like wandering around with serious military professionals with gear quality that we would consider as horrifically like, oh my god, I wouldn't go to the range with that. And it turns out, you know what? It actually works pretty well.
Some of them don't. But
I had a chance to talk to a guy who was a volunteer in Kurdistan.
Okay.
With the Syrians.
Yeah.
And he talked about like they had anti-material rifles.
Wow.
Firing 12.7, Soviet 12.7.
Big bada boom.
And they're made these are Kurdish rifles. They're homemade Kurdish rifles with machine gun barrels. And you know what they're using for scopes? Like Chinese knockoffs of Tesco.
Really?
Yeah. And like the scope lasts 10 rounds.
Well,
like you bore sight it, and you get one round to mostly get the zero, and then they're actually fighting with that stuff.
ugh.
Is it ideal? No. But you know what? It works better than people think it does.
Yeah, so don't get me wrong. I'm just like I tend to be very red dot focused, but like aim points are phenomenal. They're absolutely top of the top breed stuff. But like I'll tell you what, that Holosun, I still love my
works great,
Holosun.
yeah.
It's been beat to heck. It still works great. And if I had that choice between a Holosun and I've done maybe that's a little more than $100, but if I had a choice between a Holosun and irons, like I could only have one or the other. Ooh, man, I'm taking that Holosun in a heartbeat.
I'm pretty sure we have what would Stoner do carbines with Holosuns and no irons.
I've heard some stuff about that. Now, let me also say this: if your goal is just strictly marksmanship training, irons will actually they're kind of like the manual car.
Yeah.
You will become more. You can be more accurate. You really can become more accurate and more skilled with irons. But when it comes to putting rounds on target, under stress or on the clock, red dot reigns supreme.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the red dot.
All right. Stuka has a question for you.
Oh,
Now that Ian's book is on its way out, I don't know that I like that phrasing. Now that Ian's book has been released and can be pre-ordered,
we've heard
right now
Yeah,
on
that's true.
Kickstarter. Do you have any intentions of writing a book?
It's funny, we were just talking about this at lunch, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I don't know where I'm going to go with it. Honestly, I'm thinking more along the lines of something that's history based, kind of like the topics we deal with.
It's not going to be like from Dricey to G36.
No, it wouldn't be. But I'm playing with some ideas about things. In doing some of the research for some of the historical vignettes on InRange, whether they're Old West or not, I'm coming across a lot of stuff that I'm like, how did I not already know this? And how does not everyone already know this? Like, seriously, there's some stuff that is just not common knowledge that should be.
Okay.
That's kind of the topic I'm playing with. We'll see. It's just embryonic right now, but maybe.
All right. Nate says, what are your thoughts on side charging handles for the AR-15? Side charging uppers. As a lefty, I can't say I'd mind a reciprocating right side charging handle.
I'll let you answer this in a minute, but let me answer this. So there was a video that just came up, which is BRN 180 on the clock. Now that's not an AR-15, it's an AR-18 action on top of an AR-15 lower, but it's got the right side charging handle on it. I find it kind of annoying, quite honestly, because I really like the ambidextrous nature of the standard charging handle, what is now the standard charging handle on the AR-15. But Russell Fagan, Sentinel Rifleman, multiple times said to me, as a lefty, I love this right side charging handle. He really liked it. Just like an AK in that regard. It's actually very much applicable to a left-handed shooter. I personally think that adding a side charging handle to the AR-15 design diminishes some of its benefits that it has in terms of keeping dirt and debris out of the action. The AR-180 is still very much open as an action for getting dirt and garbage into it, which, yes, someday we'll do a mud test and dirt test on that. But the AR-15 is a really sealed system, and when you put a side charging handle on it, you lose a lot of that.
To me, this is two questions. It is, do I like a right side reciprocating charging handle? And the answer is yes.
Because you're lefty.
Correct.
Yep.
And do I want a side charging AR upper? And the answer to that is no. Because we've just been talking about where did all the benefits of the AR come from?
Yes.
They came from decades of iteration. A side charging upper is experimental in that context.
Oh, I don't see
it is one company that
Yeah.
came up with a design and they made them on a civilian basis.
That's true.
Maybe they made a couple thousand of them.
Mhm.
I don't want to deal with that because it's probably not going to work as well.
Okay.
Like, I like the right side handle, not enough to abandon the tried and proven system that the AR.
I don't like opening up a sealed system to more dirt and debris for no real good reason.
Sure. All right, Kyle says, do you think gas seal revolvers could still have a role in today's shooting culture? I'd really like to see one chambered in, say, 44 Magnum or 10 millimeter.
I don't think gas seal revolvers ever had any real application, even in the Nagant.
No, I don't think they have any role today. The problem is you can't have a gas seal revolver with a standard cartridge.
No, you have to have something customized, like the Nagant did to actually achieve the seal.
Right. The way they work is that the brass cartridge case expands across the cylinder gap.
Yep.
And if, like, you can't do that without a cartridge case like the 7.62 Nagant.
You also need to have inevitably a terrible trigger pull. You are dealing with a lot of mechanical things to overcome, right? You have to do something that causes the cylinder to move forward.
Yes, but that doesn't, like, you could do a 2-stage trigger.
You think it could be better
It
than
had
that?
good leverage in the first stage and still had a crisp break on it.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be awful.
But here's the thing: even the Nagant revolver, which was the real gas seal revolver, the amount of advantage that it got out of it was nothing. It was
Yeah.
very minimal. The amount of leakage is nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not nothing, but it's so measurably insignificant that it's irrelevant,
Yeah, you don't really gain anything practical.
except for suppression. But
Always the suppressed Nagant.
that's the thing. The gas seal actually makes it suppressed and more quiet.
It's a thing that people talk about.
Yeah.
It's a thing that like 5 people have done.
Yeah, but it is quieter as a result. So if you wanted to make a modern one, you could make a quiet revolver if it had a gas seal.
Cool, I can make a quiet automatic pistol that holds more ammo.
Then why bother, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But so this brings us back to the question: why bother with the revolver at all? But that's another question.
I can see that just because people like revolvers.
By the way, yeah, I do too. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in this world, it's like revolvers are very specialized, and a gas sealed one is so specialized it's irrelevant.
Yeah. Brian says, how long after you post the Q&A email do you collect questions?
It varies. I don't know what you do with Forgotten Weapons. I know what I do with In Range is typically about a week to 2 weeks after I post a question.
I usually spend after about 3 days, I've gotten most of my questions in.
Yeah.
And at that point, I start curating the ones I want to put in the video. And unless a really good one comes in afterwards, at that point I've got so many that are pretty good
Yeah.
that I have to cut by like 75% to
Yeah.
get to a usable list. For me, it's 2 to 3 days.
I have noticed that even after the Q&A videos posted, people are still putting questions on the solicitation for questions.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, there's no way to basically shut down a Patreon.
I guess you could delete the
Thread.
post,
Yeah.
but that seems weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say average a week.
Richard says, what are your thoughts about fan obsessions and memes like Gun Jesus?
I think they're the same thoughts I have about all memes, and they're just like, I mean, yeah, memes are funny, but I feel like, and sometimes memes can transmit a thought or concept in a very efficient way that a just spoken word can't. But generally speaking, my thoughts are, if you have something to say, I'd rather you said it than try to meme it.
I think we have a little bit of a different experience being on the receiving end. Like, well, if you see a funny meme, a funny Gun Jesus meme, that's great.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you meant you and I. You mean
No,
as being the
us.
content creators.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I have seen that meme 7 times already because everyone has sent it to me.
Oh, 7. That's a short,
Like,
that's a small day.
Every individual one, yeah.
Yeah.
So they get stale for us faster than they get stale for you.
That's probably a fair statement. You know what? And this is kind of like the comments section, which is, there's like, sometimes there's like a funny joke that is funny the first time. It actually isn't funny the 7,000th time.
The problem is it's the first time for everyone who's posting it.
Right,
Because
and-
the way YouTube works, no one reads the whole thread.
No, sounds like it's being snarky, and I'm not. The point is, we're just having a different experience.
Yeah.
We get literally fire hosed with this stuff, and so it comes to a certain point where I'm like, seen it, next. Like, I mean, it's just kind of how that works.
Ferris says, how do you think the Trapdoor Springfield would have stacked up on the clock compared to its European single-shot black powder counterparts like the Gras, or presumably the Martini?
This is better for you because you've actually shot a lot more of those European guns than I have. I've shot a Trapdoor Springfield a lot. I'm actually quite good with a Trapdoor Springfield. Those European ones, I haven't really messed with them so much.
I think they're going to be pretty much equivalent,
Okay.
assuming equal practice.
Okay.
You know, you on a Trapdoor versus me on a Martini.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
You're going to wipe the floor with me.
Oh.
But if we swap it around, if we give you the Martini
Yes.
and me the Trapdoor Springfield, we'll probably be roughly on par with each other.
Because now that skill set advantage is gone.
You don't have that, I know exactly what actions to take in what order and,
Yeah.
and how forcefully, like how much do I have to push open that trapdoor Do I lean the rifle down? Do I lean it up?
Yeah.
How do I handle multiple cartridges? How do they have to drop into the action?
Yeah, that's all true.
You've done that a lot.
Yep.
I give you a GRA. Now you're going to be like, well, I know how this works. Open bolt, put in cartridge, close bolt.
True. Yeah.
But there are going to be levels of efficiency that after your 1,000th round on a GRA,
Yep.
you're going to be like, oh, I know that I have to grip the rifle here because I have to open the bolt, which takes more force.
Yes.
Closing the bolt, all that sort of stuff. I think, honestly, most of these come in pretty similarly.
You don't think any of them have a specific design deficiency?
Not that I can think. Well, not the major ones. Like the Martini's good. The Trapdoor is pretty good. Maybe not the Snider. I've never actually done any shooting with a Snider, but it doesn't seem like a super efficient system to work with.
Of all these, I have the most experience with the Martini outside of the Trapdoor. And I will say that I think the Trapdoor is a better design, but I can't tell how much of that is just time used.
Yeah.
I just can't.
I think it is.
It might be. It might be.
The GRA is a very dependable, rugged gun.
Yeah.
Would it be faster? Then you're getting to the point where it doesn't really matter because they're both potentially so good. That,
It's kind of like AR/AK. You get to the point where you're
yeah,
like
exactly.
close enough that it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any that were really bad. I'm not coming up with
I
any.
could think of like on the American side of things, where like you have the rolling block versus the Trapdoor. The rolling block's a great action, but it's slower.
Okay.
It just is. I think it is.
I don't know that it is. I think
We've got both.
but we can't do it fair trial.
We could. Well, you could if we both did it. You use one gun, use both guns, and I use both guns, and then we do a derivative.
Well, you're going to come out faster on the Trapdoor than you are on the rolling.
That's true, but you wouldn't have that. So maybe
I could do it.
maybe we do. You do it. We'll see how that goes. That'd be an interesting. You know what?
Yeah.
We'll just put them on a brace and just fire 10 rounds.
Yeah.
Boop, and see what happens. That'd be an easy one to do. Too. That's
Do the
kinda-
GRA too.
That'd be an interesting video.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, stay tuned. Maybe.
All right, Jacob wants to know, what are your thoughts regarding what would Stoner do style firearm built around an AR-57 upper? Jacob apparently is going to Venezuela.
I think the AR-57 upper is an
You're about to
abomination.
say abomination. I knew it.
It's an abomination. It doesn't. There's no reason for it to exist. If you want,
This because it's super cool.
why?
50 rounds. It's just
Then just get a PS90.
It's just so cool, though. It fits right there. The magazine well becomes the ejection port. It's elegant. It's awesome from an engineering perspective. I don't own one.
Do you really believe that, or are you just saying that for video?
No, I think it's seriously cool. I don't own one.
Really?
I wouldn't spend money on one.
Wow.
I don't want to go buy 5.7 ammo to shoot an AR. Like,
Okay.
I'd rather get a 9mm gun. But just from a mechanical design perspective, it's super cool.
If
It
I-
takes this place that you're not doing anything, top of the handguard.
Yeah, that's true.
You can put your magazine there. You can take a regular magazine and take all the bits out. Now you have a brass catcher.
But if I wanted a 50-round AR, I just put a D60 on it and have 60 rounds, and it'd be 5.56 and not 5.7.
Well, but this ammo is more expensive.
Oh, it is, and less effective.
Yeah,
No.
that's why I don't own one.
Yeah, no. I think I don't see any purpose for a 5.7 upper at all. I just don't. Okay, maybe you can appreciate the engineering.
Yeah.
But in terms of why would I want this, I cannot come up with an answer. If I wanted a 5.7 thing, it would be a PS90.
So would I.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'd totally buy a PS90 before I bought an AR-57.
I don't know why I'd want to downpower my AR. I don't get that.
All right. Kevin says, have you guys... No, wait, no. John says, compensator on an everyday carry pistol. Useful or gimmick?
Oh, I think it's useful. I think it's completely useful. We talked about this on InRange quite a bit. A lot of people think that you don't need the comp, but when you start shooting with the comp, especially when it's a red dot enhanced Glock, like a roll-in special type of thing, that comp makes a big difference in terms of shot recovery and keeping the dot on target.
Okay.
I know you've done both. You don't seem to care that much.
I think there is a wide space between gimmick and necessary.
Necessary.
And I think it does what it does is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it does it.
But he says useful, not necessary.
I don't think it's that necessary.
He says useful.
Useful, I can go either way on.
I think it's useful. I'm going to go with useful. What I will say this: is it useful? Yes. Is it necessary? No.
Yeah, that's... Yep. Chris, is cordite propellant still in use in any modern military role? If so, why? I do not believe it is.
I can't imagine that being the case.
The only thing would be some sort of weird artillery, but I'm pretty sure nothing there.
Do you have any? I don't know. So maybe I'm putting you on the spot. Do you know why cordite even is a thing? Why did it exist?
No, I'd have to look into it.
There must have been
It did
something
at
to-
some point, and I don't remember.
I bet it was something to do with manufacturing process because they made it like spaghetti,
Right.
And then they cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just, early on there were a lot of different formulations of smokeless powder.
Yeah.
And the British came up with cordite that were quite well for them.
I bet it had something to do with efficiency of manufacturing.
Believe they got rid of it largely because it burns hotter than a lot of other powders.
Does it?
I know, I shouldn't even say this on video because I'm probably wrong.
Okay, you didn't say that.
I thought it was they got rid of it because bore erosion.
Okay. But I don't think anyone's using it
No one
anymore.
still uses it. Joshua says, when did the difference between magazine and clip become so important and entrenched, given that as recently as World War II, you see U.S. Army ordnance using the terms interchangeably in publications and film?
Well, let me go. I'm going to say something that's going to be. This is going to be heretical. Ready?
We'll see, because I had the same sort of idea.
Ready?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that much.
I was going to say it shows up as a way to prove that you're smarter than the people around you.
It doesn't matter that much. It's become this like virtue signaling thing where I'm like, this is a magazine and this is a clip. But what happened was when these things were interchangeable at some point, when there was like an M14 and an M1 on the line, which happened at some point in history, guess what? They're both feeding things. And yeah, this was a clip, and there wasn't really magazines yet, per se. And then magazines started becoming a thing. And then there's strip of clips to feed the magazine. But the whole parlance became clip and magazine interchangeable. And while I know us astute people of the firearms world know the difference, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, clip is 1 syllable, magazine is 3 syllables.
Does it really matter if someone says, throw me a clip, and then you know what they mean? Does it matter? And language is malleable.
It is, but I think the only reason that this has become popular is because it provided a very easy way to show that you knew more than someone else.
Well, that's the astuteness, where we're like,
Yes.
that's a magazine, not a clip.
Exactly.
In practice, it's in scientific practice, yes, there's a difference. In the field, when someone says, throw me a clip, you know what they mean?
And you're probably going to do it.
So it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that it happened.
Yeah.
Guys, they just didn't care. It didn't matter. Some guy in Vietnam who needed another magazine and said, throw me a clip, didn't care that it was called a magazine.
There's a similar situation with pistol and revolver.
Yeah, there is.
Is a pistol a subset of, or is a revolver a subset of pistol, or are they two equal on that grammatical tree?
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't.
It doesn't matter. This is just ego.
Tim, thumbhole stocks. Everyone I've ever asked has said they are abhorrent, inferior in every way to a pistol grip. Yet several guns in past or current military use, such as the Accuracy International rifles that were on Forgotten Weapons, have them. Is it truly inferior, and why would a military use it if it is?
I'm going to be heretical again.
Okay.
It's not inferior at all. It really doesn't make a difference whatsoever. I think a thumbhole stock or a pistol grip are about functionally the same. And that from my perspective, while I understand that he mentioned some other rifles there, the real reason thumbholes became considered abhorrent wasn't because there was anything wrong with the design, but because they were used as a workaround for a while legally. And therefore they were seen as neutered guns, whether it mattered or not.
I think there's a little more to it than that. The guns that militaries use with thumbholes were designed with thumbhole stocks. And a lot of the 94 to 2004 assault weapon ban conversions took guns that had been designed for pistol grips and retrofitted them with thumbholes that were often not great.
That's true, but like for example, way back when that was going on, I had a Norinco that had a thumbhole stock on it. And I'll tell you right now, functionally,
Just the same.
it's identical.
I had a Vepr,
Yeah.
a 308 Vepr, with a thumbhole stock that was not the same.
Well-
it was completely non-ambidextrous. You couldn't shoot that thing.
Oh, okay. Well, your mileage may vary, but like that Norinco gun I had, that thumbhole was a pistol grip that had some extra wood on it to meet some legal nonsense.
And there were a couple different versions of Norinco thumbholes.
Oh,
There was
sure there were.
the one that you have sounds like it's the one that has a particularly long grip,
It did.
easy access.
Yes.
There were other Norincos that had a right hand only,
Oh.
short. So there are some truly bad thumbhole stocks out there.
I guess what a well-designed thumbhole stock is in no way an impedance or in any way deficient to a pistol grip.
Generally speaking, the reason you would design a thumbhole is because it's stronger, because you're connecting, that pistol grip isn't connected only at the top, it's connected top
Yeah.
and bottom, and it strengthens the whole stock, and that's why you see Accuracy International doing it.
I would agree, but I think the abhorrent nature is because people saw guns getting neutered with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keith, this is for Carl. Oh, wait, no,
Nope.
I skipped one. Andrew, at Desert Brutality 2020, can we get a metal band to hold a concert?
You know, I threw this in here because I don't know.
be
I
cool.
actually think it's a really cool idea, and that's the reason I threw it out there. Is like I saw that I'm like, it'd be really cool because there's a Saturday night and a Sunday. There's a Friday night, which is normally when people are getting in. Saturday night would be the night, or maybe Sunday night after the match, and people could stay an extra time. Make it like
Anyone who's staying and
Sunday
has to leave Sunday nights.
Sunday night's party night.
Yeah.
Because now the shooting's over, right? I think this is a really rad idea. Now,
Everyone's going to want it to be Sabaton.
this is except for me. But oh gosh, now I'm in here commenting.
Oh,
about
you
that.
did it now.
I did. I know. But this is where I was going to with the problem. Yes, I think it's a cool idea. Problem. Who?
Yeah.
And if we can get them, who's going to satisfy everyone in the audience?
Yeah.
Because, no offense, I'm not into Sabaton. I'm just not.
No offense, I'm not into any of the music you listen to.
No, you're not. He thinks it sounds like a missile strike. But so the point is, what I would want to hear isn't necessarily what you'd want to hear. So how would we do this that everyone would be happy?
Yeah.
Is the question. However, the idea of something like that at the end of the match sounds really cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Now we can get to Keith. This
Cool.
is still for you.
All right.
Do you recommend a specific aftermarket trigger or fire control pack for your AKs?
Yes, the ALG, easily. The ALG trigger. There's other ones out there. I've used them all. I haven't used them all. I've used a number of them. The ALG is my favorite. Now, what I will say is that the ALG comes with a extra. There's 2 springs you can put in there. There's a standard lightweight spring, and then you have to add another spring to add trigger weight. You want that because without that extra spring, it's like a 1.5 pound trigger, and it's like
There is such a thing as too light.
too light. You add the spring, and I think you get 4 pounds, and that's where I want it to be. So the ALG with their added spring is my go-to.
All right. Ed, not the strongest guy, and 7.62 AKs bruise me up. Do you have any tips for improving recoil handling?
Well, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to say, Ed, and this is not meant to be a negative comment. That should not bruise you up, regardless of your strength. It's about how you use the gun, and I think what you might be doing is not properly having a good shoulder and chin weld or cheek weld on the gun. If you keep the gun in any way outside of your shoulder pocket when it fires, it strikes you, hits you, and then what happens is it causes an impact, and that's what you get bruising from. If you put the gun into it, it's ironic and counterintuitive that the more recoil the gun is, the more you want to hug and be deep into it.
Yeah.
Like when M1 Garand, you ride that thing and the whole gun moves, you move as a piece with the gun. Right. If you have it off your shoulder at all, that's when you get hurt.
You know, that's actually the same way that recoil is working inside the gun. Mm-hmm. The holding the gun out and all away from your shoulder is the equivalent of the bolt coming back at high velocity and impacting the back of the receiver.
That's true.
And boom, it comes back. That's
Yep.
what's happening to you if you're not holding the gun tight.
Yep.
You want you and the gun to move together as one unit. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like strength shouldn't have any impact on whether or not you're getting bruised by an AK. And something's weird if you're getting bruised by an AK.
In general, the more a gun recoils, the more aggressive you want to be on your your cheek weld and your shoulder pocket.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of a training issue there, Ed.
Yeah. Krazit says, what are your opinions on the resurgence of PCCs, pistol caliber carbines, in the last couple of years? Do you think they have any merit over a short barreled carbine, or are they just an excuse for people to own a gun that doesn't cost as much to feed and is more pleasant to shoot? I have a thought on this.
I do too. You want to start? Or you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I think, I'm going out on a limb a little bit here, but I think the popularity of PCCs comes from IPSC, and it comes from people wanting to go fast and being in a position where they're shooting at ranges that are designed with pistol caliber targets. You can't shoot 5.56 on a pistol target because you'll blow holes in it. But you want to go faster, 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 and be super cool. And it's a lot of fun, legitimately. Incredible amount of fun. So what you do is a 9mm carbine. And then I think this kind of grows, and people realize, like, especially with shoulder braces being now a totally regular sort of thing that companies will add on, now you can have what is effectively a short-barreled rifle PCC. It's handy, it's fun. I think that's where they came from.
Yeah, I'm going there too. I think there are some advantages. I think that the PCC can be a very good training rifle or carbine for someone that's new to this because of the amount of recoil and muzzle blast. General noise and Sturm und Drang, which is like, wow, you don't have that. Right. So it's a very mild thing to learn on, and it's a very nice way, an easy way to introduce someone to the practical shooting sports.
Yeah.
There is an advantage there. However, the sudden resurgence or insurgence of PCCs in the competitive environment and general interest, I think, comes from a number of pistol-oriented matches, including IDPA, IPSC, and USPSA have added pistol caliber carbine divisions. And guess what? They're easier to shoot than your pistol. You can have better times and scores. It's more fun. And so this thing that's hard, this thing that's easier, suddenly becomes the thing.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, all these people instead of building up pistol skills, it's way more fun to just bring out the PCC and blaze.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is.
And range accessibility is a major driving factor.
Yeah, and you can shoot a rifle in ranges that a rifle
Yeah.
in ranges that are normally not rifle friendly.
Yep.
But it's also changing things in terms of the safety protocols at a lot of ranges too, which is driving me nuts. That's another conversation. But like the rules around some of how these pistol-oriented matches that have now brought in long arms that they're not familiar or comfortable with. Suddenly we're seeing stuff like loading tables, unloading tables, flags, all these things that used to not be required because their rules are now trickling down into different environments where used to be long gun matches. It's kind of interesting, but that's another thing.
Yeah. All right. Space Cowboy from New Jersey says, you find yourself in the year 1900. What firearm from the time do you choose as your everyday carry and why?
Luger.
I go with a Browning 1900.
Really? You'd go for 30, 32.
I want to carry around a Luger all day. It's big and clunky and like weird shaped.
All right.
The Browning 1900 is much easier to conceal, nice and
It's
compact.
a great gun.
They're both great guns.
They're both great
Yeah.
guns. I guess it depends. If you want to carry a full size, okay, let's do this. Full size gun.
Full size gun 1900.
You're going to carry a service pistol, a full size pistol.
Yeah, probably Luger.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about if you want to go with like some sort of concealed carry type of thing, I would agree with you that the 1900 is the better choice.
There we go.
We're kind of on the same page on that one.
9 or 7.65?
Oh,
Because actually, technically, in 1900, you don't get the option. It's 7.65.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
But
I don't think it matters.
okay,
Not for what you're going to use that for.
you are officially 10% cooler with a 7.65 Luger.
All right.
It's more hipster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mihir says, well, it certainly looks cool in movies. John Wick, Splinter Cell. What is your opinion on the practicality of center axis relock? Have you ever used it? Have you ever seen it used at a match?
I don't have a lot of experience with it, so I'm not going to speak too much about it, but I can answer the question of have I ever seen it used at a match, and the answer is absolutely not, never seen it once.
Neither have I.
No.
I never tried, I don't have any experience with it either.
I don't want to speak to the practicality of it because I've never messed with it, and I've never seen a need to have it in my toolbox. I hate that term, but I just used it. But in terms of seeing it at a match, especially on the clock, never seen it at all.
I think kind of like martial arts, there are a lot of different techniques you can use that will work.
Yeah.
And it's hard to try and figure out, well, which one is best. Like, we need to figure out which one is the best, so
Yeah.
that we can all do only the best one.
We hear this in the comments as well, and it's dangerous to use a match as a derivative of the only solutions that should be around. Because there are things that matches emphasize that aren't necessarily real world needs. But, that said, on the list of things that are important, fast and accurate is really high on the list. Center axis relocks, I've never seen at a match in application of fast and accurate.
Might mean something, yeah.
But
But if you spend enough time practicing center axis relock, guarantee you can be faster than 99% of the other people out there, no matter what they're doing.
But maybe there's some other reason that has nothing to do with fast and accurate that's not in that equation, and that's what I'm not sure about.
John Wick does look pretty cool doing it.
I'll tell you, my gut is that it looks cool, and that's about where it ends.
Yuri says, do you think we will see a mechanical system for supporting a firearm during use, like the M56 smart gun rig from Aliens, anytime soon?
I think we've already seen some of that.
Yes, the Australian one.
Yeah.
It's not really, it's like a fishing rod holding your machine gun.
Okay, but there's been other stuff too. I mean, we've even seen like weird experimental crap that showed up in Ukraine at one point. There was a guy that had some rig with a backpack, and they're around. The point is, never mind the stuff that's experimental and weird that we've seen. Will there be something like that? I think absolutely yes, and we're going to see a future with that.
So the thing that the Australian military actually trialed was basically a flexible beam that you carried on your like attached to a backpack frame.
Yep.
And it came up over your head, and it was specifically for saw gunners. Mm-hmm. And then it had a string that
I've
came
seen
down,
this. Yeah, I've
and
seen
it held
this.
the front of the gun. And the idea was it will reduce fatigue because you don't have to support the weight of the gun out front, a 20-some pound saw.
Yeah, it's a beast.
And the Australian Army tested it, and I saw not that long ago they scrapped the whole thing.
Okay.
Because it's just not. It's one of those things that in the advertising video scenario, it looks great.
Yep.
And then when you try to go prone with it or like walk through a door and it catches, there are practical problems with it, and they got rid of it.
Might be a step too far, or a bridge too far, but I think just to take the smart gun from Aliens, there will be a mechanical arm augmented reality gun
Yeah.
in the relatively near future.
Powered exoskeletons are coming.
This is happening.
Yeah. He agrees. Raha says, is there any good reason to own a Desert Eagle? Does it have some practical use?
No.
Nope. All right. Angus says, What is the accuracy gain from a free float forend? In practical terms, what does it give an AR-15's MOA? I don't think Angus quite properly understands the difference between like deflection and accuracy.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going with this. So it doesn't necessarily give you an accuracy and what it gain. What it does do is not affect your zero
Right.
as a result of applying pressure to the forearm.
So here's the thing: if you push on the end of the barrel,
Yep.
it will bend. It doesn't. It's not really perceptible. You can't. It's not like.
Doesn't take much.
But if you do something like mount a suppressor on the muzzle of a gun,
Oh yeah.
it will pull the barrel down, and as a result, you will see your point of impact move down. Now,
Or somewhere else, but yes,
Sure.
generally. Yeah.
now, group size doesn't change as a result of this, or at least not necessarily. It's not like hanging a suppressor on your gun makes the group twice as big. It just moves the group.
We're still going to hear stuff about harmonics and all that kind of stuff.
Whatever,
But
minor
yeah.
sub point.
Yeah.
The reason that you get a free float tube is largely so that you can do something like put a bipod on the gun, and then to properly use a bipod, you push a lot of force into it to lock the gun down nice and stable. Well, if your bipod's directly connected to your barrel and you do that, you're going to flex the barrel. I took a Daewoo K2 to a 600-yard NRA national match style,
Oh, this must have been
to a high power match.
When was this?
When I was in college.
Oh, it was a
This
long time
like
ago.
18
All right.
years
So this
ago.
is ancient history.
And I didn't have, I had a sling on it.
You
It has
did?
a sling swivel out there on the gas block.
You didn't know, did you?
And I cranked the thing around, and guess what? I started hitting like 3 feet low at 600,
Yeah.
just from a hasty sling,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
That's the reason you have a free float tube, is so that I can put a lot of pressure on my float tube. It may bend a little bit, but it's not going to transmit that force into the barrel. So the barrel stays pointed at the exact same place. Whether that barrel, like, that could be a barrel that keyholes at 10 yards, or it could be the world's most accurate super barrel. The accuracy is unrelated to the effect of the free float tube.
We're going to hear some pedantic comments because that's not 100% true. As things heat and flex, if you don't have a free flow tube, other things might flex that will impinge on the barrel.
Right, but the effect there is that your stock is now pushing on your barrel and causing this problem.
But it will open up it could open up your group size as well as a process because it's inconsistent.
Okay.
However, this is all pedantic.
Yeah.
The reality is a free flow tube does not inherently increase your accuracy. It prevents you from shifting your zero or impacting your accuracy as a result of putting pressure on something that normally would be applying pressure to the barrel.
Yep.
If you were to still apply a pressure to the barrel, even with a free flow tube, you're still going to see the same problem. We've seen it at two guns. People stick their
yeah.
muzzle device through the port
Oh, I've
and then
done
push
it.
down, and they're missing the target high.
Done it myself more than a few times.
Even with a free flow tube.
Yeah.
I have one little element of what you said about your sling. And high power, when I was shooting high power hard and a lot, we didn't, at least during my days of shooting high power, we did not necessarily have free flow tubes on our guns. We had super heavy weighted guns and super heavy barrels, and eventually we had flow tubes. But your sling swivel might have been attached to the barrel, like you're describing. And you would put your sling on and you would like, they call it snapping in. You'd literally play an E note on your sling. You would know, some of us got to the point of where you'd know what sling hole you had hooked in, so therefore how much pressure you were applying, and you would actually dial in windage based on your sling pressure before shooting your first shot.
Yeah.
So you had dope on your card, elevation dope, windage dope augmented by sling pressure, literally in your data
Yeah,
sheet.
I believe it.
So
Totally.
yeah.
I will add, I have a little bit of a pet peeve about people who misuse the term MOA. And grain, too. Like, I want a heavier grain bullet. That's
You mean you want a longer
I
bullet?
want a heavier pound weight.
You want a longer bullet?
Could mean any number of things.
Yeah,
but, a minute of angle is a measure of angle. It's unrelated. It's not it's a relative measurement. Minute of angle does not tell you how big anything is. It tells you how big something is relative to something else.
Okay.
So if I say this is a 5 minute of angle rifle, that doesn't describe a specific group size. A 5 minute of angle rifle shoots approximately 5 inches at 100 yards.
Correct.
10 inches at 200 yards. 2.5 inches at 50 yards.
In theory, but it's rarely that consistent.
Well, sure, but what bugs me is when people are like, yeah, I put this on and it reduces my MOA by 1.
I got all the MOAs.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
a prediction.
it's a little clip and magazine, to be honest with you.
A little
bit,
Yeah.
because generally speaking, within the parlance of what we use in modern firearms discussion, saying a gun is a minute of angle gun means it shoots an inch at 100 yards, and it generally means that's a very accurate gun.
Anyway. Gory says, it's been a while since you started the Discord server. How do you all feel about it after this time?
I think the Discord server's been great, actually. The Discord server's been this really cool thing. If you're a Patreon supporter at the $10 and above level, you get access to our private Discord server. It's a private IRC chat room. It has formed a community of its own accord. There's people on there talking all the time, sharing tips, talking about matches, talking about other stuff going on. It really has formed a community around the channel, and I think Discord's been wonderful.
I'll be honest, the Discord server is a step too far for me. Do not have time, and I don't go on there myself.
Oh, I'm on there intermittently, and the in-range one's really great. There's always a lot of people talking about cool stuff, and people seem to be having fun, and for the most part, getting along.
Excellent.
Which is really cool. Of a lot of divergent views and stuff are in there mixing together, but there's a glue in the middle, which is interest in the topics we're talking about, and that seems to be enough of a gap to make a lot of people of all sorts of different walks of life have a cool, fun time.
Awesome.
I really think Discord's been really cool.
All right. Peter says, I've asked this previously, but is the AR-15 a DI gun, or could it be considered a long stroke system? Neither.
Yeah, that's neither.
It is, if you want to try and squeeze it into a category, it would be a short stroke pistol.
But even that's not really a fair statement.
Yeah,
It's kind of a beast of its own.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so a true DI gun is like that French gun.
yeah, well, there's three major groups of, well,
The Hakim,
two major groups.
the
of them.
Youngman.
It's the AG-42 Youngman,
Yeah.
and then the Hakim and the Rashid are both licensed copies thereof. And then you've got the French system, which started in the 20s.
The Moss, whatever
it
those
became
were,
the
I can't
Moss
think.
40,
That's it.
which was trials only, and then into production is the 44,
Mm-hmm.
then the 49, then the 4956. Those are true direct gas impingement.
So a true DI gun just has a gas tube that blasts gas, and the force of the gas alone causes the bolt carrier to cycle back and cycle the gun.
The technical way to differentiate them is that a DI gun does not have a sealed piston.
And the AR-15 does have a piston. It is the bolt.
Okay.
The bolt itself has those 3 gas rings on it, and that is your piston.
Right.
So it is a weird mix of DI and pistons.
It's a brilliant mix. So
Oh, it is, but it's neither short stroke nor long stroke nor truly DI.
the only reason it gets called DI is because it's got a gas tube that's about 16 inches long.
It's more DI than not, but there's still a piston. So it's an interesting.
I would say it is 98% piston. It's just a piston that's not located in a normal place, so it's got a very long tube to get gas from the barrel to the piston.
The brilliance is that in a short stroke or long stroke gun, you have multiple pieces of mass moving to cycle the gun.
Right.
In a short stroke gun, you've got a short stroke piston still moving,
Right.
which then strikes the bolt carrier, which then cycles the entire bolt carrier group back.
And not on the same axis as the barrel.
Correct. With a long stroke, that's even more mass moving. With the DI bolt piston system of the AR-15, you are not adding any mass,
Right.
but still have a piston.
Right. In fact, you're leveraging the mass that has to be in your bolt carrier already
Yes.
in order to have it cycle properly, and using it as both as mass to slow down the cycling, to
Yep.
balance the cycling, and as the mass necessary to create gas piston.
It truly is genius.
So, have you ever had buyer's remorse after a firearm?
You forgot to say who.
Probably Satan.
Okay.
Have you ever had buyer's remorse after a firearm-related purchase? And if so, why? Yep, I have.
Well, there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn. I got a wild hair for a while to start learning about the Type 14 Nambu. And I ended up getting 3 of them to learn that the Type 14 Nambu is a steaming piece of shit. It is one of the worst pistols ever designed. It is only slightly, if not as bad, as a Nagant revolver. So the Nagant revolver, at least you can use it to hit someone with. I don't think you can even do that very well with a Type 14 Nambu. So I had buyer's remorse for all 3 of my Type 14 Nambus.
Yeah. Slow learner?
Yeah, I
Can't
kept
be this one. It must be decent.
really.
I'll try a
They
different one.
can't be this. This can't be. Wow, they're all this bad. They really are that bad. That's where I got to with that.
My buyer's remorse has basically been every time that I have gotten the idea for this is going to be the ultimate awesome gun, and saved up for 8 months for it. Every time I've done that, I've been disappointed. And it started with almost one of the very first guns I got, which I already mentioned. It was this 308 Vepr,
Yeah.
which, according to my research on the internet, when I was 18, I think, was definitively the most awesomest gun.
What forum steered you that way? Let's throw some shade.
Honestly, I don't remember.
It
was before I was really on forums discussing.
Thought we were going to
things.
get to throw some shade on the forum. All right.
No, this was me looking at all the guns and figuring out which one.
I can see-
Honestly, it doesn't matter what the forum said because I'm 18. I knew best.
I can see why you would think that about the Vepr 308 until you got it.
Yeah, if you put down its characteristics on paper and then only pay attention to the ones that you decide to pay attention to, it looks great.
It does.
And then it turns out to be kind of like a disappointment.
Yeah, I could see that totally. Totally.
That's the one that really comes to mind. But there have been one or two others that were similar. Like, I'm pretty sure this is going to be awesome. This will be fantastic. And then I save up and save up and save up and save up. And that process heightens expectations. And by the time I get it, I'm like, oh, no. This is probably also not helped by the fact that I tend to like eclectic guns.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's like, oh, that was the overlooked gem that's going to be awesome. And it turns out every overlooked gem actually has some gigantic crack right through the middle of it.
There's really a good reason a lot of these guns that people put a lot of hype on because they're rare or esoteric.
There's always a reason why they're rare.
It's because mostly they suck. Like, I mean, that's really why. Like, that doesn't mean they're not interesting.
No, they're fascinating. I have a whole collection of guns that are not super.
But then you get it and you're like, oh, okay.
Now I understand.
It wasn't that we weren't enlightened enough to know that this was the good gun. It just isn't a good gun, right? I mean, that's kind of how that works. Yeah.
Exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Connor, we have two left here. Connor says, what are your thoughts about doing a cowboy action two-gun match?
I would love to do that. Now, we've done a couple of those kind of in the past, but nothing's like super themed. We just said, this one's friendly. Like, this one, bring out your lever gun, we can get away with it in this. Mm-hmm. We've never done one that was specific. Well, we did one long time ago, but before In Range. We never did one that's been specifically cowboy action themed or cowboy or that period of time themed. Mm-hmm. The reason that's the case is that to be able to play that game, you really have to have the guns.
Right.
We can do things to make it like you can only load your AR with 3 rounds, but it's really very...
you don't get the effect.
Very artificial. And so you have to be able to have enough people to bring those guns. Now, there is something called, there's Western 3-gun, which actually is a really fun modification of cowboy action where people that shoot cowboy action shoot 3-gun with them, but there's movement on the clock and accuracy requirements, and it's really neat. And I actually ran a Western 3-gun match in Tombstone before In Range was ever a thing for about a year and a half. Problem is, the majority of people that shoot cowboy action aren't necessarily into that level of dynamic movement and competitive shooting, and the people that are into that level of competitive shooting and dynamic movement aren't necessarily into cowboy guns. It's a weird fish and fowl problem.
This is like machine gun matches.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I'm the guy. I would be that guy. I can think of no more fun a 2-gun match than to bring... No, I mean this.
I know.
To bring out a 73 or a 66 and a wheel gun, and I think it'd be awesome. I think it'd be so fun. It is fun. I've done it. I love it. It's the most fun shooting ever. But I'm obviously a minority in that one.
And our last question is from Bobby. He says, if you were to add a 22 rimfire category to 2-gun action challenge, how would you do the rules?
We did. And it
Really?
sucked. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it might have been before you were part of it.
It clearly was. I would have assumed you would have recognized that it would suck and not do it in the first place.
No, we tried. We tried because at that time, unlike now, when 22LR is this expensive resource, like I don't know if it's gotten better.
Yeah,
but,
it's gotten better now.
but it used to be cheap. Like it's not
really cheap.
It's not cheap now. It's better, but not cheap. Used to be cheap, and so there was a reason to bring out a 22 because it was cheap, and so we had this division, and there were people who would come out, and we had rules such as this. We had to realize that most plates will not fall over with 22LR hits, even with multiple hits.
Right.
So we had to turn it into, okay, falling plates have to be hit 4 times before they're considered neutralized. We did stuff like this. Turns out, a falling plate at 50 yards, trying to hear and count 4 hits reliably on that with this little thing is very difficult from an RO perspective, especially when people are chit-chatting in the background or whatever else is going on. Turns out that these things don't neutralize targets like they'd like to. They're mostly unreliable.
Yeah.
Some automatic 22LR guns, man, I know we're going to hear this. 1022 is great. Great. We brought it to the match, not great. There was malfunctions nonstop. Hitting stuff at 200 yards, you can't even tell if they're hitting. It's not viable. Yeah. It is not viable. We gave up on it.
Yeah, I'm actually legitimately surprised you even tried it.
We tried.
It's kind of diametrically opposite the purpose of 2-gun.
It was trying to be accepting, and we were trying to provide a venue for people that couldn't afford to. If people want to shoot, here.
You know what that's become today? 9mm PCC.
It has.
Like, that's close to the cost of 22.
Which you can shoot to a 2-gun in a PCC category. Now we score PCC separate to the main match because it's too weird, but it will knock over the plates.
Yeah.
And you can hear when it hits at 200 yards. The 9mm PCC works. The 22 does not.
But that's like today's version of so many fewer people, it seems like, go out plinking with a 22 today.
No.
After the great ammo shortage, like 22 never recovered, and
Didn't.
9mm grabbed that opportunity and is now the cheap practice ammo.
It is mass manufactured and the costs have reduced as a result.
Yeah,
So I think you're right. That's it. So we tried it. Doesn't work. But is that it?
that's it. That's
My
all.
goodness. So
We can start over again.
nah, it's okay.
Have you changed your opinion on side feeding SMGs from World War II?
Nope.
Nah, neither have I.
Okay. So I don't know. This was great. I love
Yeah.
these. You know, these tend to be some of the more popular videos on the channel. Actually,
Yeah, I find them very fun.
I apologize for the doggo. It's hot out today. It's like 100 degrees outside, and Doggo didn't want to be outside, and Doggo really didn't want to be inside either. So
Yeah.
he made some noises for us, but oh well, you get to have the ambiance of the home. Guys, if you like this stuff, again, it's the Patreon supporters that get to submit these questions, and we can't take them all, but we eventually get through them. There were a number of them on here that people said, I've asked this 3 times, and we try to get those and prioritize them. If you're one of them, please keep asking. We'll get to it at some point. Thank you for your support. We appreciate every one of you, $1 and above, because it's you that keep In Range here. It is not monetized by any other advertising revenue. So that's super important. If you can't do that or already are, just please subscribe to us again on one of our multiple distribution channels. You can find them all at In Range TV and share with your friends.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.